Hi, good evening, and welcome to this week's episode of Sounds of the Diaspora, Artist to Artist, a conversation with yours truly, Dion Parson. I'm really excited about this guest tonight because this is someone that I'm getting to know, and he has a really, really amazing history, and man, he just have a lot to say and great music to follow. So please join me in welcoming our guest tonight, Mr. Muneer Nasser.
Yes, sir.
How you
Thank
doing?
you, John, for inviting me on your show.
Yes, sir. Welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing well. Thank you so much.
Good, good. How's the weather in Maryland?
Weather's fine. You know, I just played the Silver Spring Jazz Festival. In the middle of our set, we had some hard rain. But you know, it pushed the crowd away. But we had a good set on Saturday.
That's great, man. I like Silver Spring, man. It's beautiful down there.
Yes, definitely is.
And the jazz, besides the rain, the jazz festival was nice. It was well attended.
Yeah, very nice. Yes,
great, beautiful. So you're a trumpeter, composer, arranger, author, historian. You have a lot going on, man. You know, we'll talk about these different roles, but you're also the son of the amazing Jamil Nasser, the bass player.
Yes.
Yes, you grew up in a musical family, man. That's really great.
Yes, and you know, when we started going out, he was playing with Ahmed Jamal, and he had a great young percussionist named Azadine Weston, the son of Randy Weston. Have you ever heard of him?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, he was a brilliant young percussionist, and so he inspired us. Just seeing him with that level of mastery on stage made us curious, and maybe created a desire for us to play as well. Seeing that he was young and on the bandstand playing like a master.
Yeah, so it's like kind of like someone a little bit older than you, but dealing on a level like a peer to see that they can be that proficient as well. That's
well,
great.
He's more than a little bit because Azadine was born in 1950. I was born in 67.
Oh, okay.
So
well, you and I are the same age. We're the same age, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, I was born in 67 as well. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah,
but he was definitely inspirational for sure.
Well, inspiration comes from different sources, you know, avenues, different angles, but it's good, you know, good inspiration is good, and that's really great, man. But how was it growing up in a house with a father like an amazing bass player like your father? How was that?
Well, it was very challenging because when you have a father that's a master like that and exemplifies excellence, it kind of sets up that expectation. And he emphasized being excellent, you know. That was his main motto, was like, don't be mediocre, don't be average, try to rise above the heat. That was a mandate for us to pursue. And it wasn't just about music, it was about having a balance. But he had a spiritual life. He was always reading and studying. So you got 3 levels, 3 dimensions of being: physical, mental, and spiritual. And he dealt with them all. And he encouraged us to do likewise.
That's great, man.
He was about, you know, business and controlling the intellectual property. He was one of the few that escaped drug addiction. And that compromised a lot of the musicians of his generation, their ability to do business and own property and generate wealth. And so he was an advocate for musicians studying business, understanding business, and being disciplined, not falling into drugs and the traps that were set up for musicians to fail.
That's great, man. That's a good advice to live by. I think we still see that, you know, in today's society as well. Not only in music, but just in the arts in general. It's just, you know, something that you have to be aware of. But that's really good advice
Yes.
to live by. So growing up, you pursue trumpet, and you ended up going to Howard University, correct?
Yes, but I studied business because
Mm-hmm.
I tell a story in the book when my father went to teach there, and he wasn't too satisfied with the curriculum. So
Mm-hmm.
in my effort to diversify, I actually went to Howard to study business, but I was in the music and the fine arts building every day. So I consider myself as having a double major at Howard.
Yeah. Major in business, minor in music, or vice versa,
And the
right?
interesting thing, so I'm in legal environments and I see a drummer and he has a stick bag. And so we walking in the class, I said, well, who have you played with? And he said, Joe Henderson. I said, Joe Henderson? I'm like, who are you? He said, my name is Keith Kilgore. I was a drummer with the Blackbirds.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in my class. And I ended up playing with him and his group. He
Nice.
told me the whole story about Donald Byrd and, that aspect of the jazz history at Howard, which was
That's a great
yeah.
legacy, man. Playing with the Blackbirds. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, some great music. And I had a chance to meet Donald Byrd because he visited campus quite often.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was amazed by him because he was always, if you wanted to ask him a historical question, he would give you 2 to 3 minutes, but he was always working on something. Like he had a paper on like the pygmies in Africa and their perception of time, and he would pull out a big manuscript. And you would want to talk about Fuego or one of those great albums he did, Catwalk.
Mm-hmm.
And he would talk about it for 2 or 3 minutes, but he was always just future oriented and future focused. That
That's
impressed me too. And his diversity. He had a degree in law. He had a degree in I think ethnomusicology and a couple of other disciplines as well.
He was well
I was
versatile, yeah,
definitely impressed by that. Yes.
and well studied. That's a great person to be influenced by as well, too. Yeah.
Yes. And he like my father emphasized education.
Mm-hmm.
My father went to Arkansas AM&N and he organized a college dance band there. And they won the Pittsburgh Courier Poll 1952, but they couldn't go collect the trophy at the Apollo Theater because the university wouldn't let them use the bus.
Mm.
And now this is another interesting point that people don't understand. Jazz was demonized by the church. It was the devil's music in church. This is the black church we're talking about. And also on campus at a predominantly African-American university, jazz was forbidden to be played. It wasn't considered legitimate music. You could play Bach, Beethoven, but you couldn't play jazz. So they had to rehearse at night. So they were underground in the 50s playing jazz on campus, but they got good enough to where they won and they beat all the other, dance bands and jazz dance bands of that time and won that poll. He's still trying to find the trophy. And one of his fellow bandmates, Odie Burris, established a jazz program that turned 50 years old this year. He started it in 1975
At Howard
at
or
Arkansas.
in,
It's
in
called the
Arkansas.
University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff now. It was
Right.
Arkansas AM&N back
Yeah.
in the 50s when he went there.
Yeah, it was a big struggle back then for the music, and it's really interesting because in today's society, the music is welcome in the schools, and there's a conversation about how validated it is because it came up through the streets, and all of the challenges that the musicians had back in the 40s 50s helped to make the music as great as it was and is.
Right.
And now that is part of academia, it's changing. The essence of it has changed a lot. That's a conversation I've been having with a number of friends. But any thoughts on that?
Well, I think one point that's overlooked, and my father emphasized this, Dizzy Gillespie talked about it, the church, that there's certain elements of African American culture, not the least of which is the church, that beat, the emotion, the concept of music and worship and spirituality and call and response, all those virtues that make jazz the powerful music it is found in the church. So anybody that's studying jazz in the classroom out, that if you haven't gone to the church, you're missing an important foundation. See, any teacher that's teaching jazz should have, it should be a field trip that you go to church, in a Pentecostal church, you know what I'm saying, where they get up and dance and shout and do. And then we used to play. We would play with that. We'd be hearing Turnpike by J.J. Johnson over there, and people would just go crazy. But if you didn't touch the people emotionally, they wouldn't give you nothing. So it's good training on how to connect with people, how to connect with the audience emotionally, not intellectually. And so in academia, the emphasis is kind of on the cerebral, not on the feeling. What brought me to jazz is the way it made me feel.
Right.
The feeling of the swingability of it, you know, the joy that was in it. And so I think those elements of, and the blues, you can't take the blues out of it. Once you take the blues out of it, that's that emotional essence, even that connects it to the church, because it's common. The blues and the gospel have common roots. They're basically branches from the same tree. So that's a thing, because Duke Ellington just said, don't mean the thing if it ain't got that swing. Now, what is that? That's a feeling. That's not just notes and, you know, chord changes. That's a feeling. Swing is a feeling. And how do you get that?
Right.
And the way you get that, you have to deal with African-American culture. There's no way around it. You have to deal with that, particularly the church aspect of African-American culture. And I think that's missing now. You're hearing a lot of music that it just doesn't, you can't pat your foot to it. It doesn't swing. And that just personally, that's the thing that brought me in. I mean, I appreciate some avant-garde and stuff like that, but I really love swing and melodies and chords.
Right.
And so that's the important point. I know my father really emphasized that with young musicians.
Yeah.
You know,
you're right. It's important. And thanks for sharing that for our audience. Like the elements, you have to have the intellectual, the academics, the theory, but the essence of the swing is the true feeling of the music.
Yes, because they play for dances. You know, a lot of those great musicians, whether it be Coltrane, and my father reminded us of this, they came out of R&B bands. They played for people dancing. And when you play for people dancing, you can't drop the beat. There's no drop in the beat. And they got fired for that. If you did, you would get fired. He had to walk his bass through, you know, the front door. There was only one exit. And if you dropped the beat on one of those gigs they were playing, they fired you.
You know, and I think that theory of good feeling exists in all types of music, which I'm sure you know of, because, you know, you're well versed in not only jazz, but other types of, you know, Caribbean music and stuff like that. And that's the same thing. I grew up in the Caribbean, and that's, you know, all the music that I heard growing up was for dances or for some type of celebration or something of that nature. Classical music was presented in concerts and stuff. And of course you had the spiritual music in the church and stuff. But the majority of the music that we heard was, you know, music for social events. And it was about partying or dancing or celebrating. And you know, again, there's similarities in the U.S. and in the Caribbean, and you know that you had the good fortune of playing with Jazz Jamaica.
Yes, that was very interesting, because I always loved reggae back to the early 80s. I went to see Black Uhuru. It was at 1984. That's when Puma Jones was alive. You know what I mean? And Fly and Robbie, ooh, man, they played, man. I mean, seriously, that music is powerful, man. It really is. In fact, we played Black Disciples on Saturday. I started playing that. I heard Monty and Ernest Wrangling band, please. I mean, it's really a crime against humanity that this man is not more well known than he is. You know, I mean,
which one are you talking about? Which Ernest?
Ernest Wrangling, man, genius, man. It's mind blowing.
Ernest is a monster, man. I had the fortunate. I've been fortunate to play with him for many years. I record with him. He is one of the biggest unsung heroes of the guitar.
Wow, man.
Yeah,
I know that. I'm impressed, man. He's so creative too, man. He plays things that make you shake your head, man, and say, wow, you know. And then Monty, of course.
Of course, yes.
He's something. I remember, you know, seeing him a lot, you know, in my younger days. And my father was like a mentor, you know, for him coming, you know, when he came to New York and stuff like that, you know. And I always loved his playing.
So having that experience of playing with Caribbean musicians like Jazz Jamaica, what was that like playing that style of music?
Oh man, it's fun because it's different. It gives you the beat falls differently. There's more space, and then the connection with the audience. You know what I'm saying? The people are dancing, they're happy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just I always just love that music, man, and the sound of it, you know, and the feel of it.
And ska music, a lot of the change is the blues.
Yes.
It's you talking.
I
I'm just
played
trying to
with
bring the
East
blues
Coast.
back around to the conversation.
Yeah.
We talked
Eastern
about church and the
Standard Time was
blues,
a group I played with.
and yeah, a lot of that stuff is really just vamps on the blues.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Yeah,
true. It's like folk music,
right.
you know, and it comes and it talks to the common man, you know, it speaks to everyone, you know,
Oh
and
yeah,
it
oh yeah,
reaches everyone.
and it
But
just
I like the danceability factor.
yeah.
And you know, jazz used to have that kind of
Mhm.
pulse that people and you know, I remember one time we went to see Lou Donaldson at a Jazzmobile in the Bronx, I think Webster Avenue, and they played Now's the Time, and everybody was dancing.
Mhm.
It just goes to show you the what this music could do when people are exposed to it, if it
Mhm.
has a chance.
Mhm.
You know, because we looked around, everybody was dancing to the music as we were listening to it. And so this music is powerful, you know, and it feeds those dimensions I was talking about, the mind, the body, and the spirit.
Mhm.
And so a lot of the popular music today just feeds the lower man. This music elevates. And to me, reggae had that same power too. I mean, look how it fanned out in the world and made such a great impact,
Oh yeah, yeah.
you
It
know.
was very it was very healing for me. Growing up in the Virgin Islands, growing up to reggae music, it was soothing, it was healing, but it was also very uplifting from the message that it gave.
Yes.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, yeah.
And
And
then when I talk to rosters, I always learn something, man. That you
mhm.
always would learn just to keep an open mind, you know, and to sit down and talk to those brothers, man. You always would walk away,
Yeah,
you know, learning something you didn't know, you know.
talking with the elders is important. And
Yes,
speaking of which, I know you're working on a project, the documentary about the Blues House Sessions, the Memphis Blues.
yes.
Can you tell us a bit about that as well?
Well, let me give you an example. Like you see these books like the 1619 Project,
Mm,
and a lot of people talking about the Reconstruction and the 1877 Compromise, and it's good to study those historical facts. But in my research, I'll give you one example. My father played with Monk in May of 1972. Every book on Monk has missed that, including Robin Kelly. They had to call him and say, "You missed something." He said, "What?" I said, "My father worked at the Aqua Lounge in Philly for 6 nights with Thelonious Monk in May of 1972."
mhm.
Okay. It's told, my book is the only one that covers it. And every time I saw Paul Jeffrey, that was his greeting for me. Did your father tell you when he played with Monk? Robin told me he talked to Paul Jeffrey for 11 hours. My father's name never came up.
Mm,
And so the 1977 Bill Street Festival, that was the first time they all went back to Memphis. Phineas Newborn, Frank Strozier, Harold Mayburn, George Coleman, Lewis Smith, B.B. King. It's like almost like Summer of Soul.
mhm,
Sybil Shepherd's brother has a tape recording of the whole festival. And Sonny Chris plays a version of St. Louis blues that will make a brass monkey cry. It's so powerful. He
mhm.
shot himself in the head 4 months later.
Wow.
And he says he hadn't been to Memphis in 25 years. His father and I think his aunt was in the audience. Now, this is a man that played with Charlie Parker, and you could look it up. And he more than held his own on the stage with Charlie Parker, but he wasn't invited back from Memphis for a quarter of a century. And so this is still, we're trying to expose that festival and just the Memphis, the group when they came to New York. Miles Davis, Red Garland. I put the article from the Esquire magazine. They said we knew there were blues in Memphis. Bruce Foreman wrote the article. He said, but where did jazz come from? Because they came directly from Memphis to the center of the jazz world.
Mhm,
And Memphis was known for blues. And Phineas Newborn,
mhm.
Red Garland said when he came and played piano in New York, he said he upset all the piano players. And my father had the good fortune of coming with Phineas to New York in April of 1956, and that catapulted him into the center of the jazz world.
Mhm.
And that's how Red Garland heard him. He was able to get on those albums with Red Garland because they heard him playing with Phineas Newborn. And unfortunately, Phineas Newborn had a nervous breakdown a couple of years later. And that's why I have a chapter called Freelancing, when my father basically had to fend for himself. That's when you see him on those albums like The Big Sound with Gene Ammons and all those different albums he did with Red Garland.
Mm-hmm.
And he also did an album with Kenny Dorham and Hank Mobley on Blue Note.
Okay, so is this the information that's in the documentary, or this is an information in upright bass?
Well, this is in the book.
The legacy of Jamil Nasser.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
but I still have a lot of footage.
Let's talk about that book for a minute, so
yes.
our audience can understand what you're talking about and connect it to your father.
Okay, this project it evolved out of. We realized he was in the early stages of Alzheimer's, so you get into that kind of depression and irritated mood. So I suggested this as a means, like a bridge to get him through that, because he was talking about his history. We interviewed Buster Smith, who died 90 days after our first interviews. Crucial information and pictures he gave us. But this didn't start then. I remember asking my father where he was when I was born in June of 1967. It turns out he was in jail in Suriname with Ahmed Jamal and Frank Gam. They almost lost their lives. I tell the story in the book. Ahmed was so traumatized by it, he wouldn't even talk about it.
Wait. Your father was in jail in Suriname with Frank Gant?
Yes.
The drummer.
And Ahmed Jamal.
Wow, okay.
And he told them, if you want to stay alive, be quiet, let me handle it. Because he experienced a similar situation in Africa where Oscar Denard was killed. It's too many details for me to go into the story now. You would have to read about it. But they narrowly escaped death. And it's similar. I'll give you a hint. The situation that precipitated it is still going on right now as we speak, almost 60 years later. That's just a hint. So that started my series of inquiries and asking him about, different things about his career, because I wasn't expecting that answer. When he told me that story, that kind of piqued my interest and asking him further questions about his career and experiences. And the book involved, I started the book. He took me and my brother on a school night in 1979 to the Village Gate, to the Blue Mitchell tribute. It was called Blue in the Night, June of 1979. That's the most musicians I've seen in the room. John Faddis still remembers it, because every time I see him, I bring it up. Jimmy Owens was there. That's two people I could think that's alive today that was in that room. But I met Sam Jones, and Max Roach was the first person walking out. That's the first person we saw walking out of the Village Gate that night, was Max Roach. And that was like me seeing Michael Jackson, because I knew who he was. I had already heard a lot of the recordings with him and Clifford Brown. Then we saw Philly Joe Jones, Sam Jones. I'm like, these were like, I knew who these guys were because I heard their music. So that was really exciting just to have that. And we were the only, kids in the building. Yeah, I had just turned 12.
That's great, man.
Good history. Yes. And seeing Dizzy Gillespie, a year after I started playing trumpet, I'm looking at Dizzy Gillespie, same place, at the Village Gate. And guess who was playing congas? At the Dean Western.
Oh, okay.
Now he's up. I seen him with Ahmed Jamal, my father. Now he's up here playing with Dizzy Gillespie. And so that was really inspirational.
So the book is out, correct?
Yes. It's been out since 2018.
Since 2018. So where can people? Well, give us the full name of the book and tell us where we can find it.
Okay. The name of the book is Upright Bass: The Musical Life and Legacy of Jamil Nasser. Nice. I wanted a nice modern photo. A lot of the jazz covers have that dark, black and white, old looking photo. He could walk off this cover and have that shirt on today. So I wanted the contemporary and colorful. And so it took me 15 years and $15,000 because I self-published. See, when you publish, that's another problem of letting somebody own your intellectual property. It would have been the musical life and legacy of George Joyner with Jamil Nasser in parentheses. And once you sign the contract, it's their book. They get final say on what comes in. Wasn't a fight for freedom. You born in 67, I'm born in 67. Look what was going on there. You know what I'm saying? They were asking for what? Freedom, but freedom is not free. because I had to pay $15,000 to produce that book. I had to do the index. Anything you don't have money for, you have to do on your own. But the great news is you could model it in the internet age. And so there's a lot of information. Roy Haynes just died. Where's all that information? I mean, decades and decades. And let me give you an example. My father, I tell a story about Sonny Rollins fired them, but before he Night at the Village Vanguard, the famous album. If you read the line notes in the back, Leonard Feather talks about a quintet that played the week before. My father was in that quintet. It was him, Donald Byrd, Roy Haynes, and Gil Coggins.
Okay.
And I tell the whole, it's too long to tell. Buy the book if you want to read the story. Aidan Levy told it again in his book on Sonny Rollins. So now the book is growing legs and appearing in other people's research. And I asked Roy Haynes about it in 2000. He didn't scratch his head. He said, it's true. He said, the only thing I couldn't remember it was Gil Coggins on piano. That's the kind of memories these guys had. He was 80 years old then, you know? And so one of the things I wrote was like the best jazz library is the cemetery, because it contains the untold stories and lessons of thousands of artists. Larry Willis promised to write a book. When he went to hear Roy Haynes interview, you know, so you get a lot of promises, but Ahmed Jamal didn't write a book either. Look at all that information, experience.
A lot of history, a lot of information there. Yeah.
And he was real sensitive about people distorting his history. You know what I'm saying? And making up myths about him. But still, now there's more opportunity for that to continue, you know, when you don't write your own memoirs. So that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be dictated to by, you know, the publishing industry.
Right. And it's great that you paid homage to your father and the right way. So thank you for sharing that, and good luck with the book. And we do hope that you have a lot of success with the book and influence and encourage others to do the same, because a lot of this story needs to be told. That's one of the reasons why we created this platform, Sound of the Diaspora, to have these conversations so people can be aware of what's happening and do research to get more information as well.
Now, you know what I learned? Now, this is interesting. Now, I didn't know until I did the book that Monty played with my father before Ahmad. In fact, he said that he was, when he auditioned with Ahmad, he was playing with Monty at the Playboy Club.
Okay.
So that night he played with Monty. Just little tidbits. I never would have thought that, you know.
Right.
I would have thought he came later, but actually he played with him first.
Right.
It's 1962.
Beautiful.
So just like stuff like that. I was able to get some little bit of information from B.B. King, because he started with B.B. King in 1955 on electric bass when it was a new instrument.
Mm-hmm.
One more thing, I had a debate with Cyril Moscow. He's a Russian scholar. He told me I was writing. I wrote, my father and them were making up a myth about going to Russia and denouncing their citizenship. So he said, "You got any evidence?" I said, "Yeah." The first thing I gave him was a ticket I got in this house from 1960.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote an article, and the ticket is from Moscow to Cairo. Then I said a newsreel that they did in Poland in 1960. That puts them behind the Iron Curtain. Then I gave them the actual host that hosted them in Russia. He put his name in the search engine. Everything I said in the book appeared right there. And they offered them citizenship in Russia, but not everybody wanted to go along with it. And so they were one of the first jazz groups behind the Iron Curtain. And one of his colleagues said Russia was closed as it has ever been in 1960. That's why it makes that so implausible that they were there playing music. But it actually happened. But all the books, the new documentary, Jazz Ambassadors, it's like they never went. And check this out. Mitchell and Roth went the year before them. Those Cool Reds, August 1959, you can find it online. They wrote an article in Time magazine. So if you can find that online, and the Jet wrote an article. And so I went to the Smithsonian and said, "Y'all missed something." They said, when I went up to the guy that did the documentary, I said, I went on my phone, I said, "You didn't see this Jet magazine article?" And then last thing, Willie Ruff wrote a whole chapter on it and Call to Assembly. A whole chapter just on a Russian trip. Yet every documentary, every book says Benny Goodman was the first.
Right.
See what I'm saying? So you're talking about playing games with history and moving stuff around, excluding people. It's, ladies and gentlemen, it's been going on a long time. This is nothing new.
Well, the good thing is that you've made it clear in the book, and the folks can go read the book and check it out and
Yes.
have that documentation, and that's really great, man. Thanks for sharing that. I know this is important for us to share, but I actually want to get to some of your music.
Okay.
Some of the great stuff that you've shared with us. So you released a CD entitled "A Soldier's Story," and you shared some music with us. And
Yes.
do you mind if we move forward with the music?
No, I don't. Not at all.
Yes. So
that's what we're supposed to do. Another thing I say, when we get into over praise of the ancestors, I'm not on the awakening. I'm not on those are Jamil Nasser. So the understanding is I have to make my mark. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We move forward. Father, your father should take you FARTHER. Your father should take you farther than you have gone.
Right.
FURTHER.
Right.
Your father should take you further. So it's not just it's about being inspired by those who come before you, but trying to push forward. So Soldier Story is the musical companion to the book Upright Bass.
Great, beautiful.
See?
Let's check out the first song you shared with us, Nasser's Blues.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
That was Nasser's Blues, man. Funky, funky, funky. I love
Thank you. Thank you.
it. Yeah, man. One of our listeners says, I love the innovative improvisation. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Love the unique and personal style. Okay.
And so that's
Exceptional,
another thing I wanted to like
technical
self-produce these
skill.
albums too, because that is carrying on a tradition of independence.
Oh, yeah.
Because I saw my father in 1984. They were sitting around. They weren't invited to the Cool Jazz Festival. So I watched him produce a 2-day tribute to, and I got the flyer in the book, a 2-day tribute to Red Garland at the Jazz Center. And I just want to say there's some people walking around talking about women in jazz. And I'm telling you, if you're not mentioning Kobe and Narita, and they have exhibits on women's history, and it excludes Kobe Narita. I don't understand that. She was one of the foremost. And I get people coming after it looks good if it seems like you're coming out of vacuum, like nobody was doing this before you were doing it. But before Terry Lynn Carrington, there was Kobe. And I was even told that Kobe helped her when she came to New York. But now she's talking about women in jazz, and she's not mentioning Kobe Narita. I got a problem with that.
I hear you.
She was the pioneer of that.
I hear you.
We got to stop doing. I'm saying, I mean, with all due respect, I love Terry Lynn Carrington, her drumming and everything, but she's not the pioneer of women in jazz. That belongs to people like Kobe Narita. You got to mention her. You can't have an exhibit and not have no mention of her at all.
I hear
That's
you.
historically inaccurate, and that's one thing that I'm trying to correct, even with this book.
I hear
There's
you.
a lot of mythology out here, and you got chosen people speaking, and you keep hearing the same couple of people talking about jazz. And that's not the spirit of this music. You have Lee Morgan over here, you have Blue Mitchell over here, you have Freddie Hubbard, just to use trumpet, you have Booker Little, you have Blue Mitchell.
Muneer, can I ask you something? Who's on this recording that you just played? Who's
okay, thank you. We have on tenor saxophone a young dynamic tenor saxophonist named Elijah Easton, who's a native of Washington, D.C. Talented pianist named Alan Johnson, in great demand, one of the top pianists in this area in the country on piano. The veteran bassist James King, who plays a lot with Gary Bartz. He's been a member of Gary Bart's group for a long time.
Nice.
He's played with a lot of people over the years. He hails from Houston. And we have John Lampkin III, second generation musician, as far as the great trumpet player, John Lampkin II. He's from Baltimore. Beautiful. And he's playing drums.
Great, man. Thank you for sharing that. So it's really funky, man. I enjoy that. So let's the next song you shared with us is another really, really great song that I enjoyed. I was listening to it earlier, man. I couldn't stop grooving. It's called Cancel Culture. Let's check it out. This is another great one. Cancel Culture. Collaborative. Yes, great collaborative communication.
Thank
Yeah.
you. So that was a concert. We were supposed to do a concert on 2023, Juneteenth, and it was canceled under the threat of rain. They paid us. So I decided to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, so to speak. So I have reinvested the proceeds in playing one set from that proposed concert. And my concept was the diaspora, blues, Latin, reggae,
Right.
music from the diaspora. I was thinking of Juneteenth and liberation and where all the people came from, being uprooted from Africa, dropped off in Jamaica, dropped off in America, dropped off, and everybody developed a different music style that was separate yet related. So I tried to capture that on this album. And Cancer Culture was a tribute to the fact that we had our concert was canceled.
Yeah. Well, it came out great, man. I love I love it. It's nice and funky, man. And it says, love this. Your trumpet solo is so emotionally expressive.
Thank you.
Yeah, great arrangement. Yeah, man. Some good comments. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, let's keep moving because time is not our friend right now, and I want to make sure we get all your music in. The next song you shared with us is Duke in the Whirlwind. Let's check it out. Duke in the Whirlwind. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Nice 3/4 DD. I like that.
Yeah, so my father wrote a tune called Duke of the Winds, and he said he gave it to Phineas Newborn in the dressing room in California that they shared with Toots Tillman. The next time he heard it, it was called Bluesette, written by Toots Tillman.
Bluesette.
Oh, I
Was,
wrote that song called The World.
You said the next time you heard it, it was called Bluesette.
Yeah, I tried to steal it back. He called it the Duke of Winds. That's why I called that Duke in the Whirlwind.
Okay. All right. Well, the arrangement is awesome. I can hear each instrument, but it's still symphonic. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The audience is enjoying the music, man. That's really nice.
Yes.
Yeah, good comments. So we have one more song, and this is the title track from the recording. And before we play it, just share with our audience where they can, where they can follow you, website, Facebook, any of that stuff, real quick.
Yes. I'm on Instagram, TikTok. My website is MuneerNasserMusic.com. I have two websites. For the book is JamilSNasser.com. And I'm sending, CDs out to radio stations because of streaming. That's the problem. I mean, who would have thought? Because I remember hearing how Little Richard got pennies for a record, 2 or 3 pennies, but now it's a fraction of a penny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who would have thought it would have went back this far where you can't hardly generate any money through streaming?
Right.
Somebody had to go in the room and figure this out. How can we not pay the musicians and just, enrich ourselves? And this is a lot of the problem that we face. But still, this is what I don't understand when people say you can't make money. If you got a full room of people, you can sell to them.
Live music is still where it's at. So
Yes.
That's why it's important to come out and perform. But the audience hopefully will, check out the websites, follow you, support, continue success. But it's been a pleasure having you. I want to get to this last song before our time run out.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
So let's
Thank
jump.
you so much.
The title track of your recording is called "A Soldier's Story." Let's check it out.
Yes.
That's
All right.
Soldier Story. Muneer Nasser. Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you so
Thank you,
much,
man.
Dion.
Great music, man.
Thank
Yes,
you.
yes.
Pleasure being with you this evening.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. It's really been a blast checking out your music, listening to your music, sharing it with the audience, and then hearing the history behind your
Yes.
research, your book, and the recording, man. So continue success to
Thank
you
you so
and all
much.
your endeavors, and we wish you all the best. It's been such an honor having you on the show, man.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. And again, let our audience know your Instagram, Facebook, website. Please share.
Yes, please visit us at jamilsnasser.com and Muneer Nasser Music, updates about my performances. I'm going to Memphis. I'm excited about that in October, doing a masterclass and panel discussion and a concert there. So if you want to stay abreast of my activities, you want to order a book or CD, those two websites would be the best possible places.
Great, great, man. Thanks again, brother. Thank
Okay,
you
thank you so much
for having
for
the show, man.
having me.
All the best.
All right, take care. Thank
Yes,
you.
yes. That was the one and only Mr. Muneer Nasser, sharing his music and story and book and all the great stuff he had to share with us. That was him sharing all that stuff, man. It was really, really a pleasure. I learned so much, man, listening to him about the legacy of Jamil Nasser, his father, and the great work that he's doing. So please support, go out and check him out. And come back next week and join us as we bring back to the sounds of the diaspora. We had him on a while back and there was some technical issues, so he's decided to come back and grace us with his presence. Come back next week as we bring back Mr. Corcoran Holt to the sounds of the diaspora. It's been a pleasure presenting for you. We do hope that you enjoyed the music that you heard and the information has been informative. We look forward to having you back next week as we present another great show. All the best. Take care. Good night.